Hi, this is John Bowe, and I'm going to take you through Crimsafe talking tech about my '69 Mustang Sally car I race in the Touring Car Masters. Now this car, as you can see, it actually is a car. It didn't start as a pile of tubes on the ground. It started as a '69 Mustang. It was imported into Australia in the mid-2000s and built by a group of people in Melbourne into a race car. So whilst it's genuinely a '69 car, it's still got a lot of '69 parts in it. For instance, the rear springs are leaf springs, just like they had on Cobb & Co. Stagecoaches way back. The front suspension's still got Ford uprights, which basically ran from the early '60s until the late '90s. You know, if we look at the most famous '69 Mustang in Australia, would be Alan Moffat's Coca-Cola car, and that car, whilst it was absolute cutting edge at the time, would be 10 seconds a lap slower than this car. These have got better brakes, they've got better shock absorbers, they've got better engines, they've got better gearboxes, but they're still very old-fashioned in comparison to a V8 supercar. A V8 supercar is a spaceship in comparison, but they still have a real DNA. I mean, this is a Ford, the V8 supercar is a Ford. It's got a very similar way to drive it, in as much as it's got a lock diff at the back and there's a style to drive it. And if you ask any of the current V8 drivers, their style of driving would be very similar to the style I have to use with this. Let's take the engine for instance. It's a 351 Windsor. It's the bottom end is very similar to a V8 supercar. It's got a special block, a motorsport Ford block. It's got a special crank, rods, pistons, all racing stuff, and all out of America and all readily available. The cylinder heads are aluminium. They don't make us use cast iron, but they are not as advanced as a V8 supercar cylinder head. The cylinder heads on V8 supercars have got inclined valves, and these are inline valves, but it still makes well over 600 horsepower, and in the old measurement it makes 510 foot-pounds of torque, 520 foot-pounds of torque, so it's quite a strong engine, and it's still got a carburetor on it. There's no fuel injection, there's no electronic ignition. It's very much as they used to be, but of course the carburetor design now is so much more advanced than it was in the '60s. The carburetor is beautiful. You wouldn't know it's not fuel injected really. It's a bit hard to show here, but it's a 15-inch mini light wheel, which is what, you know, Moff ran on his car, Norm Beachy ran on his car. They're only a very small wheel, 8 inches wide, which is, you know, narrower than a lot of road cars now. And if you look very carefully in there, you'll see the disc rotor, which is 305 mil in diameter. Now, a V8 supercar, I think, has got, off from memory, 390 mil diameter brakes. So obviously the brakes on this thing require a lot more distance to pull the car up. It never runs out of brakes, but it's marginal. And if a V8 supercar, for instance, stopped at 200 metres, you'd have to apply the brakes in this car at possibly 270 metres, 280 metres. So the retardation is not anything like a modern car. One of the things that's really changed, thankfully, is the factor of safety. Back in the '60s, they had if they were lucky, one roll hoop over the top of the driver, so that if the car rolled over, it wouldn't crush his head straight away. Where in this case, the car's got a very well-designed chrome moly roll cage that is integrated into the chassis, so it adds not only to the safety in a very large way, but it also adds to the stiffness of the car. Contrary to the V8 supercar design though, the roll cage is not allowed to go past the windscreen, so we have this very strong structure here which is obviously protective of the driver, but it doesn't quite hold the front of the car as strongly as it should. So the cars are much more vague to drive than a modern car, and they get a certain amount of flex in the front, which you can see by little cracks in the windscreen that open up regularly. might be interested in the gearbox. It's only 4-speed. Most cars today got 6 speeds. It's a H pattern, which I think is part of the driver's skill. This is a dog gearbox, so it means a racing gearbox. You don't have to use the clutch with it. It's a very nice gearbox. It emanates from NASCAR. It's the sort of thing they use on all NASCAR circuits, not only road circuits but ovals as well. Very tough and very strong, and touch wood, doesn't require that much maintenance. It's got a long throw though, where it's a bit like a light truck gearbox in terms of its change, but it works beautifully. In fact, it's a pleasure to use. The car's still got its all original dash panels, still got a radio, but of course I've had the interior of the radio updated so I can get FM, get that nice, smooth, easy listening radio that we all love of my era. So there you go, there's a very brief insight into Mustang Sally. The cars of the 60s and 70s are still very popular with the motor racing crowd nowadays. They are very much modernised, but still the same characteristics. So they're still old, muscly, retro beasts, really. That's why I love driving them.
Buying security screens? Most Crimsafe lookalikes can pop out in just a few seconds, but the real Crimsafe doesn't, thanks to its patented screw clamp. Cheap lookalikes can pop out because they're only held in with a piece of plastic. But Crimsafe screw clamp locks the mesh and spreads the impact. Crimsafe resists attack and corrosion and now has the ultimate warranty, 15 years. Ask for a demonstration today, because if it's not Crimsafe, it's not Crimsafe.